I've been having to put drops in Sweet Winnie's ears because I think they're itching her because allergies. So she keeps ear flopping, but just look at the face she makes when you itch it for her. Pure Okay. Hi kids, welcome back to another pizza party. I'm Mrs. Pizza. That was Weenie. And Cheese left because Cheese... I think Winnie's broken. Cheese is gone. Cheese left us. Cheese will be back at some point. She always is. She's an independent lady, not like my Winnie who wants to crawl inside my skin with me. And we are here today to talk about some recent reads. I like to do this when it's a little bit on the shorter side. So let's get started. Let's talk about some books I've been reading recently. The first book we are actually going to talk about, I did a bunch of rereading around this little like segment of the year for some reason. I know exactly the reason. It was the anxiety. My anxiety was riding me like a tiny little jockey, and I needed to take control of that situation. And something that usually works for me is rereading things I know I love. It brings me joy. And so I did a bunch of rereading. So one of the rereads that I did was Radiance by Grace Draven. I have talked about Grace Draven in other videos. If you haven't heard of Grace Draven, she is a fantasy romance writer whose books tend to lean more fairy tale feeling. They feel like a fairy tale that has a strong romance going on in it. I really like her books, and Radiance is definitely up there in the top favorites of mine from Grace Draven. This is the story of Brishan, I believe is how you pronounce it. I don't think there's an audiobook version of this, and so I'm just gonna have to go on what I think these fantasy names would be pronounced like. But Brishan is a prince. He is the spare to the throne, and he is being married off in a political alliance to Ildiko, who is I believe she's the niece of the king. She is kind of an unimportant royal, and so she is being used for political marriage as well. And so these two are married off to each other. But here's the big kicker. See, Brishan is a completely different species. Ildiko is a human. She's a human lady, and it sounds like a very pretty one with beautiful red hair. But Brishan is, I forget what they're called, but basically this other species of human-like creature. They sound very similar to like a fae, where they have small magical powers, but they have gray skin. They have completely black eyes, very long nails, and they are nocturnal. They live in the night times. And so these two are not going to be attracted to each other because they're completely different species. But the fun thing about this story is from the beginning, these two kind of get off to a good start in becoming really good friends. Do we need to pause this and put your eardrops in? Hold on. I need to address the ear situation.
It's intermission. Rise and stretch time. Time to refresh yourself and visit our snack bar. Showtime will be announced loud and clear.
All right. I was talking about Radiance and how it is the trope that I believe is superior to enemies to lovers, and that is friends to lovers. These two start off with a great friendship. They pick at each other. They make fun of how each other looks to one another because they both find each other very odd looking, but they start off as friends. They get along in the beginning. They're allies in this strange kind of pairing they've been made. They're trying to make the best of this situation, and they find in each other a good friend, and it slowly evolves into something more. I really liked this. I will say I have tried on several occasions now to read the sequel to this, the follow-up, kind of the ending of their story. And even though the first book ends on like a happy for now type moment, I cannot get into the second book. The first book is great. I just can't seem to plow through the second book. So unfortunately, I have always just stopped at Radiance, and that's been fine for me. I've really liked it. I like Grace Draven. I like my fantasy romance to feel like a fairy tale, and you know, friends to lovers. This is superior, top tier. The next book I picked up after that, because I was still feeling like I needed stuff that was soft and lovely, was Only and Forever, and this is the 7th book in the Bergman Brothers series. This is a series of contemporary romances written by Chloe Liese. I think the 7th one is the last one. We've gotten Vigo. He's our last brother, but you are following, it's not just brothers, there's Bergman sisters as well, but all of our books follow the romances of the different Bergman siblings, and there are 7 of them. So they're a very big family, and there's a lot of really sweet stories. A couple of them center around professional athletes. We have professional soccer players and professional hockey players within this family, but also there's a lot of representation for a lot of different things. We have ADHD, we have chronic illnesses, we have, I believe there's several of them that have different autism diagnoses. Not sure which is the right word, but I said all of the words, so one of those is right. But these are all very sweet and warm. The Bergmans are a lovely family. If they were taking applications for adoption, I would definitely put mine in. I would love to be a Bergman. They sound lovely and supportive, and all of these stories are sweet and low stake. They just kind of are easy to get through and light and fluffy, even though things are going on, such as people having chronic illnesses or different disorders, and they're well represented in each book. These are easy and light. And I have, since reading this though, really realized that contemporary romance is just not always for me. I needed something light and fluffy, and that's what it gave me, but I just don't think I'm into contemporary romance as much as I used to be, and that's fine. Tastes can change and things can change. I didn't even tell you what that book was about today. This is the story of Vigo, and he's the last Bergman brother. He is the hopeless romantic of the group. He has helped everyone else find their match. He's always a bridesmaid, never the bride type character. Vigo's main kind of goal in life to truly fall in love. He reads a lot of romance novels, and so has a very romantic ideal of what falling in love would be like. And he has this secret going on where he has kept it from his family for reasons, but he is opening up his own bookshop, his own romance-themed bookshop, and he encounters Tallulah, who he actually has known for a very long time. Tallulah's sister is best friends with one of Vigo's sisters, and they also had a class together in college. They both have this attraction for each other that they don't think is reciprocated. They think they're both having like an unrequited crush, but they, through circumstances, end up having to move in together and work at the bookstore together, and chemistry happens. It was fine. It was sweet. It was fine. These books are fine. These books are just fine. After that, I actually ended up picking a nonfiction up from the library. I listened to this on audio, and that was The Age of Magical Overthinking, Notes on Modern Irrationality, and this is by Amanda Montell. I had read Cultish from this author and enjoyed it. It's very surface level, talking about the language that different things that we would deem cults use. This one is more about cognitive biases and how a lot of those come to play in different aspects of mostly American culture. This was fine. I didn't like it as much as I liked Cultish, but it's an easy listen. It reminds me of like a podcast, which would make sense because Amanda Montell has a podcast as well. So it's very like conversational. I feel like there was a broad span of different kind of biases talked about, but nothing was delved deeply into. It was just kind of a sprinkling of all of these things that have different effects on different things. It was very surface level, which Cultish was as well, but Cultish worked a little bit better for me. This is easy. It's easy. And I feel like is one of those books that you would probably read and then use it as a jumping off point to then go deeper into some of these different things that this author talked about. So it could probably lead you down a path to some very interesting information. It's a gateway book. The next book I picked up after that was another reread, and that was That Time I Got Drunk and Yeeted a Love Potion at a Werewolf by Kimberly Lemming. I officially find a way to talk about this book series in every single video that I record. This is one of my favorite fantasy romance series. This is hilarious. It's just so funny. This is the second book in this series, and in this book we are following Bree, who is a cheesemaker, and one day when she is at a festival in town, she narrowly misses being dosed with a love potion. Someone is trying to slip her love potion and she doesn't realize it, and she turns and chucks said love potion at the person that was trying to give it to her. He ducks at the last minute and it hits a werewolf square in the back, and he turns around and professes his love to Bree. And Bree is now in a very sticky situation because how does consent work when someone has been given a love potion? Now Felix, our werewolf, who was hit with a love potion, is completely convinced that Bree is his fated mate, and he will do anything to convince her that he is the one for her. But he has this love potion rambling around in his system, but he's 100% positive that he has found the one in Bree. This is funny and fun. This one is a lot more low stakes than the first book. The first book, there's a lot more big adventure happening, but this still has adventure type moments. There's this underlying thing going on in the town that these two get pulled into. We're introduced to some more fun characters in this world. If you like your fantasy romance to have you kicking your feet and giggling and then laughing hysterically at nonsense, this is it. This has really steamy, spicy bits, but it's also just really funny, and Kimberly Lemming has a great sense of humor in all of her books. If I could get you to read one thing, it would be the Mead Mishap series. I like the first book. I really love the second book, and the third book's even better. The series keeps getting better and better the further along you are into it. The next book I picked up after that was The Blacktongue Thief, and this is by Christopher Buehlman. This is part of a series-ish. I believe the next book that is coming out in this series is a prequel to this. It's called The Daughter's War, but this is the story of Kinch, and he is the thief. He actually does have a black tongue. He is a black tongue thief. In this world, different people have different physical attributes, and where he's from, the people have black tongues and tend to be a little bit on the smaller side, apparently, but not teeny tiny, but he's just not super tall. Now, I don't know why I shared that with you, but he talks about it a lot, I feel like. But it's easy to tell if someone is from where he's from because they have black tongues. Kinch, from a very young age, was raised in the Thieves Guild. In this world, thieves are taught in these schools and brought up through these guilds, which are kind of the reigning power, the political machinations of the thief world. It sounds like there's different guilds for different things, but he graduated from thief school and now is in debt because you have to basically pay back to the Thief Guild for all they've been able to teach you for the rest of your life. And he's behind on payments. So he now wears a tattoo on his face that's visible in the light that basically makes it so every time he walks into a bar, someone can literally walk up and just deck him and they get a free drink on the Thieves Guild until he pays his tab. Like, it's so interesting that every time he walks into a bar, someone walks up, just clocks him, and then goes up to the bar and retrieves their drink, because the first person to do it in every bar gets a free drink. The Thieves Guild sounds like it is a very shady and all-powerful thing. There's lots of different kinds of thieves. There's assassins. There's all sorts of magic in this world as well. I will say in this, there's a very distinctive sense of humor. You are always in Kinch's head, and he is an interesting character. He is our thief. He is very morally gray. He's seen a lot of things, and he has his own motivations and his own sense of morals. And so the humor and his point of view they go throughout this entire story. So if you start reading this, if you pick this up and on the first couple of pages, we might get a couple minutes without the air conditioning blasting. If you pick this up in the first couple of pages, you do not like the tone or the humor, stop right there. You're not going to like it through the rest of the book. I had a great time with this. I thought it was really funny. But in the opening of the story, we have Kinch with another group of thieves who are trying to rob someone on this secluded road outside of town. It goes terribly for the group of thieves, and through circumstances, Kinch actually ends up going on an adventure with the person that he tried to rob in the first place. The Thief Guild has things going on in the background. The person he tried to rob has their own motivations. This is all taking place in a fantasy world post-war. There was a giant war with the goblins that has decimated a lot of the people and the culture and the different settlements around. People are living in kind of hardship and poverty, but there's also places where the goblins live in kind of right next to where people are as well. The goblins are an ever-present thing, and they hate humans, and humans hate goblins. Of course, they were at war for a very long time, and it did a lot of damage to both sides. I really enjoyed the humor in this, although it's a little, I want to say crass. Is crass the right word? I hope it's the right word. Some of it is literally jokes about the dumbest things, but I thought it was absolutely delightful. This is really well done. I'm really excited to pick up The Daughter's War, because The Daughter's War is one of the great battles that happens prior to this book opening up and is referred to a lot in this story. It has a lot of effects on kind of the world that these people are living in. We have a animal companion in this. He's not really an animal companion in the traditional fantasy sense. He's just a cat. He's a regular old cat that just happens to be blind that's along for the ride. And he doesn't do anything other than just be a blind cat. But I really had a good time with this. I absolutely devoured this book, and I'm excited to continue on with the rest of this world in these books. And the last book that we will talk about is actually something I picked up on a total whim. I hadn't heard anything about, and I had a really good time with. And it's one of those books where I'm trying to find its people, because I feel like every once in a while you read a book and you just don't know who to give it to. You're like, I really liked this. I need to find other people who really liked this, but it's just weird enough that I don't think it's everyone. That book is Someone to Build a Nest In, and this is by John Wiswell. And this, I believe, I don't know if this is a debut novel or not, but for some reason, I feel like it is. I could be completely wrong, and I refuse to check right now while I'm talking. This is the story of Sheshin, and she is a monster. The entire time you were in the point of view of a monster, and she is a shape-shifting monster who eats people. I saw it described as a horror fantasy romance, and that is exactly what this is. It is grotesque in some points. We have a shape-shifting monster who not only can take the form of humans, but she needs structure inside of herself in order to do it. She can't make bones, so she takes things inside of her, whether that be other people's bones, or sometimes she uses a link of chain for her spine, a bear trap for her rib cage. She could be full of all these metal pieces as well. But she is the monster that lives outside of town, that there's all of this folklore and rumors of things about. These monster hunters have been sent after her, and she once again has to protect herself. She's just trying to sleep in her dilapidated castle that she lives in. She's just trying to do her best, when she is chased out of her home by these monster hunters and ends up injured when she is found by Homily. Now, Homily is a very sweet soul who has come to this region for very specific reasons, because she thinks that her family has been cursed by this monster who people think is Sheshin. Well, she is very confused on why everybody thinks she is this monster. She's never put a curse on anybody, but she slowly realizes that she absolutely adores Homily. Homily is kind. Homily is warm. Homily would be the perfect person to build a nest in and put all your eggs in so that they could eat her insides and explode out and they could have children together. It's a very complicated thing, realizing that you have a crush on someone but wanting to lay your eggs inside of them, which would kill them, but also you'd have eggs. Sheshin's got a lot to think about. In this story, I had a really good time. I think because you are looking at the human condition from somebody that is very not human. Sheshin has some really dry takes on things, which Homily thinks is absolutely hilarious, because Homily doesn't really realize that Sheshin is 100% serious about these takes that she's having. It's a story of humans being the real monsters half the time, even though Sheshin's the one eating people. All of these humans are just absolutely awful. And there's a few twists and turns around these two characters, things that you pick up on, things that you don't. It was fun, and it is definitely a horror fantasy romance. It is. That's what it is. It's got some really gruesome bits. It's got some really funny bits, but the whole thing felt a little bit on the cozy side. I don't know how else to describe it. I had a great time with this. I ended up giving it 4 stars. I thought it was a fun and different kind of read, but still felt like a cozy fantasy romance. Just the one where the monster is our love interest and she eats people. If that sounds interesting to you, give it a try. It's one of those books that I need someone else to try so I can talk about it, but I don't know who else should try it. I hope that makes sense. I read all over the place. My reading taste is everything, it seems like, so why not? And now I want more of this horror fantasy romance situation. Is this a thing that everybody knew about that I'm just finding out about? Because I had a great time. I want some more of that. But that, kids, is where we are going to end this recent reads. I've been talking long enough, and the dogs don't want to hang out with me anymore. Jesus, back there, doing a little snooze. I hope you heard about some books that sound interesting to you. I hope you had fun hanging out with me and the dogs. If you did, please subscribe. I hope you're reading good books out there, wherever you are, and I'll see you next time.